Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on our mobile supply chain series, selecting the right mobile solution for your warehouse operations. There will be a Q&A session after the presentation. If you have questions throughout, please enter them in the questions box on the lower right portion of the screen. Let's get started by introducing our experts. Richard Sandall is a supply chain veteran, and his most recent position was the Global Warehouse Manager at Shell. Richard worked for Shell in both downstream and upstream operations. In downstream, he led the successful deployment of Shell's global standard SAP IM in the lubricants business across 37 countries. This included deployment of standard business processes, a new organization warehouse transport system, supplier collaboration tools, and key performance indicators guides. Sri Karthik is a Senior Vice President for Business Development and Marketing at Innovapptive. His focus includes business strategy, product positioning, and the development and deployment of industry-specific solution portfolios. His experience spans around customers in the consumer products, oil and gas, utilities, chemical, life sciences, industry, and working with clients from different geographic regions. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us today. Look forward to hearing your insights, so let's get to it. I'm going to hand things over to Richard to kick things off.
Thanks, Mary Jane. Richard Sandall. I'm going to be talking you through the first part of the presentation. I'll then hand over to Sri a bit later on. Just by way of introduction, this is the agenda that we're looking at today. We wanted to start off by going through some of the big industry trends that we've identified, and then look at some of the business drivers that support the adoption of mobile technology. We'll then look at Innovapptive's M-Inventory solution, which is an example of a mobile application that can be used in the warehouse. We're going to have a short case study of an oil and gas company who's using our mobile solution. And then Sri will give a demo, a short demo of how M-Inventory could be used to support warehouse operations. We'll then summarize up and allow some time at the end for Q&A. So the kind of objective really today is that we want to give you some good insights into mobile device operating systems and applications, and really for a mobile solution to work for a warehouse, all those three elements need to be operating in harmony. What we've identified through research is four big industry trends, technology trends, if you like, which are affecting the market. And we're going to take each of those in turn and run through those in more detail. So the first one is the shift in the rugged device landscape. We're then going to talk about the growth in different operating systems and the consumerization of applications, which has been a big change in the market in recent years. And then we'll talk about an example of some of the changes that are going on in mobile applications. So we're going to take each one of those in turn and go into a bit more detail. One of the big changes going on over the last couple of years and will be into the near-term future is the end of life of some of the Microsoft operating systems. So those systems, things like Windows Embedded 6, Windows Embedded 8.1, and the various versions that have been launched over the last 10 years or so, are all coming to an end of life in the next 2 years. And the implication of that is that they're very dominant in terms of being used in warehouses. So companies have really got to consider what's going to come next. Android is starting to make inroads into the warehouse device market, but what we find is many companies are still on their older systems. So some companies have started to recognize the changes that are going on and have started to respond. So this chart actually shows the main reasons why companies are planning on changing. And this was a recent research done by VDU. So 35% of companies said that their mobile operating system on devices was near end of life. 25% said that they needed to upgrade applications to more modern consumer interface, and 21% said that the age of install base of mobile devices was a concern for them. So these are kind of the main reasons why companies are looking at changing their mobile solutions. Just interesting on the device side, I mean, it's quite often you see in warehouses companies that have been using the same devices for many years. We actually came across one company who they wanted to stick with their current devices, even though the manufacturer had stopped producing them, and the only place they could source them was via eBay. So we wouldn't sort of recommend that as a strategy. So next, in terms of operating systems, I mean, as we said earlier, that Windows has got this massive install base in the warehouse market and industrial handhelds generally. But the big trend that has been happening, obviously on the consumer side, is the growth of Android, and to a lesser extent, but also quite an important player, obviously iOS, and iOS tends to be bigger in the US market than it is certainly in Asia. But the situation is, with the growth of the consumer, the power of Android in consumer, then it's starting to make inroads into the industrial handheld market. And you'll see that in the right-hand chart, although that Windows has still got around about 77% of the market, Android is around 23%, and that kind of growth has come in the last few years. So in terms of operating system, then you've definitely got a wider choice than you had just a few years ago. So there's the choice of Windows, Android, and iOS, and that is a real choice. I think a few years ago maybe there was concern around Android and security, but that's fast disappearing. We've got examples of clients who are actually using iOS devices in the warehouse. They're actually using one client is actually using an iPad on forklift trucks, and Windows has still got a loyal base of clients. So in terms of the applications, then, you know, we talked about the handhelds, the different operating systems. The applications that run on these devices is also changing very rapidly, and you get evolution. Things that have happened in recent years include the sort of virtual keyboard versus the old button keyboard, and that's had big impacts in terms of productivity. So this is some stats that came from a Zebra strategy paper. So on the left hand side, you'll see that data entry for workers with a virtual QWERTY keyboard versus an ABC keyboard is 39% faster, and so there's that productivity element, and then there's the accuracy element as well over on the right hand side, so that you get 60% more accuracy with a virtual QWERTY keyboard versus the old ABC layout. And the other thing you'll notice is quite a big difference between the demographics as well. So the younger workforce obviously takes up new technology faster than older workers generally. Therefore, the younger workforce actually gets even faster using the newer devices. The other thing I think just generally on the applications, it's not just around speed. The newer devices are giving you larger screen size, which is again important in some countries with an aging workforce. And despite the bigger screens, the newer devices are lighter, and this promotes user adoption. The other thing, you know, with Android, a lot of people have got Android phones on. They use them as their personal devices, and this is very important in a warehouse because it actually drives user adoption. Navigation is the same on the industrial devices, so it's all around promoting usage, and Android has certainly done that. In summary, you could say that the user experience really is critical in the selection of the mobile solution. Research done by VDC in 2015 showed that nearly half of the responses said that user experience was the most important aspect of their enterprise mobile selection. If you're an SAP user and you've been using SAP for a while, then you'll recognize the terminology here. SAP console or SAP ITS mobile are the devices that link your mobile into the back-end SAP system. And SAP console has been around a long time, probably around about 20 years. It does have some shortfalls. The old SAP legacy systems, they don't have offline capability. They can only support certain transactions. As you'll see, that's kind of an old screen on the left-hand side, and they only support the sort of the older devices, and that they haven't changed a great deal in recent years. So there's kind of a range of other companies that are coming into the market to sort of improve that whole user experience. One of the things, one of the things that companies find when they start to introduce mobile applications is the challenges of scalability. And what we mean by that is that companies may be successful in introducing the first mobile application in one warehouse, but when they come to the second warehouse, they face maybe the challenge of different business processes, maybe different languages, roles, operating systems, and devices. And if they've developed the solution themselves, or it's one of these older solutions, it may well have been hard-coded with a very rigid structure, and this makes it difficult to change. And this is actually installed. This has actually stalled many mobile projects. So scalability, agility, and flexibility are really key. What this slide shows some of the sort of critical issues that you should be aware of when you're selecting a solution. So the newer devices obviously are able to use the full capabilities of the device, things like camera and scanners, and they have seamless online and offline capability. By offline, we mean that you don't need a Wi-Fi network and you don't need to be on 4G. So the solution will actually continue to work offline. Then once you get back into range, it'll automatically synchronize with your system of record. Okay. So we've talked about some of these four big technology changes that are going on, and that's something to be aware of, obviously, particularly if you're using one of the older operating systems or older devices. You know, you need to be prepared for those changes. At the same time, the newer solutions do bring a lot of business benefits, and in most organizations, you're going to have to build a business case around doing the change. And this looks at some of the kind of business drivers that you should be aware of. In particular, three, I think the modern solutions are providing: number one, lower costs of training; two, would mitigate the expense of operational downtime; and three, would eliminate costly delays and errors. And we'll go into each one of those in more detail. So companies, I think it's fair to say that warehouse operations are becoming more complex, and at the same time, we're under a constant pressure to try and reduce the costs of warehouse operations. And quite a lot of operations will have a relatively high turnover of staff. So if you've got technology in the warehouse, you need to be able to train people very quickly. And in fact, there's some research to show that if you do have good technology, the workers are more likely to stay and enjoy the job if they've got technology that really supports their day-to-day work. So I think that's a critical consideration. Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the older legacy solutions that we talked about earlier, the ITS mobile, it was very much based on old-fashioned technology, green screens, very limited information there, and it doesn't promote job satisfaction if people are made to use these older devices. So very much modern technology is it's all around really the user experience. You need to be able to train people very quickly. You don't really want to, you don't have to send people on formal training courses. It needs to be a device they can pick up, and like any app that you download, they can really learn how to use it in minutes. Otherwise, it won't be adopted. Okay. Many warehouses now are operating on a lean basis, and in order to do that, then you need to have people, machinery, and processes really all working together in harmony. And the modern device will give you that in terms of promoting real-time insights into where you are operationally. Have you got picking on time? Have you picked all the orders for the day? Do you need to redeploy people because you're, say, particularly busy on goods receipt that day? And so the modern mobile device is actually helping you anticipate problems before they actually happen. So yeah, the modern technology really is about foresight. So you're actually being proactive, you're managing the operation, you're not reacting to things as they happen. So it's giving you more visibility. One area that we've seen recently in a warehouse is sort of we call it track and trace capability. If you're operating, with an older mobile device or quite often without a mobile device, you'll find that there's a big disconnect between the physical activity taking place and when that system transaction gets posted. There may be a gap of a couple of hours if people have got to go into the office, and then there's a backlog of work to catch up on. If you're using a modern device, you're doing the physical movement and then the systems transaction at the same time. So your whole operation is aligned. You know where all the orders are. You know the status of warehouse operations at any time during the day. Okay. And then eliminating delays and errors. I think that's probably a known benefit, but I think stock accuracy in a warehouse is sometimes underestimated, and we always view it as probably one of the most important elements of a warehouse operation. It really is an indication that all your processes are working, that people know what they're doing if you've got high levels of stock accuracy. If you've automated the process through barcoding and auto collection of that information using scanning, using a mobile device, then it enables you to drive high levels of stock accuracy, and that feeds through in terms of productivity and not least in terms of improvements in customer service. Okay. The other thing is really about leveraging the device technology, and if you're using a native mobile app, then you're able to use all the features of the device. The modern device will have a phone, will have a camera, it'll have GPS capabilities, it will have facilities for messaging, attachments, which can be important. I mean, just something simple like having a camera on the phone, then you're able to, for example, at goods receipt, if you find there's an error, then or damage, you're actually able to take a photograph of the materials that could instantly be sent off to the buyer or even directly to the supplier to remedy the situation very quickly. So it's really about leveraging the technology, not just having technology for the sake of it, but really being able to support day-to-day operations. Okay. quicker decision making, we mentioned that earlier, and then, you know, as Internet of Things comes along, obviously being able to integrate mobile into equipment, other equipment in the warehouse will become more important over time. Push notifications, I think, is again another feature of mobile devices. So, you know, instead of the worker having to go back into the office to get information or to talk to his supervisor or manager, you're actually, the manager and supervisors can push information down to the end users, and just make for a communication can be a big issue in a large site, and it just speeds up the whole communication process. Okay. So in summary, there has to be a business case for implementing technology, and you know, that's a big part of our business. When we go to talk to clients, it's always, we want to understand what the pain points are. We're not just pushing technology for the sake of it, but what are the challenges you face? What problems are you trying to overcome in your warehouse operation? And how can our solution help? So, you know, some of the benefits that we highlight and we put a business case around would be things like improved training time. So, you know, we can train people in an hour or 2 hours. If it was an old-fashioned SAP system on the desktop, you could take 2 weeks to train somebody. We are trying to preempt problems, so by keeping everything up to date in the system, we can kind of foresee things which older technology was not able to do. We're very much about trying to eliminate delays and errors in particular, so stock accuracy is still a major cost driver. If you're able to increase stock accuracy by even 1 or 2%, then it can have huge benefits in terms of inventory saving costs. And then it's expediting decision making, so communication between the workforce and the managers having really clear visibility into what's going on minute by minute in the operation. They're all powerful benefits from having a modern mobile solution. Okay. Yeah, next I wanted to talk a little bit about the M inventory solution. We're not going to do too much marketing here, but I think it'd be good to kind of to understand what a modern mobile application can do, and Sri's going to kind of demonstrate some of the capabilities later on. But I think if you're using an older solution in the warehouse, then this should be quite interesting. So our mobile app is called M Inventory. We support all of the typical warehouse transactions, so you know, goods receipt at the front door and all the way through to goods issue at the back door. You'll see from the devices there, it's got a very modern look and feel about it. We use the iOS guidelines, so the Apple guidelines. So if you've got an Apple phone, you'll kind of, I'm sure you'll be kind of familiar with that layout. We are able to support all of the different operating systems that we talked about earlier. So we support Windows, Android, and iOS, and we support all of the different barcoding solutions that are around at the moment, from simple 1D, 2D barcodes, QR coding, through to RFID scanning. And we've got the race tool. We're not going to talk about it too much, but we did talk about the scalability issue which many companies face when you try to roll mobile out beyond the first site. We have a tool called RACE, which is the Rapid Application Configuration Engine, that actually enables you to configure screens very quickly. And I remember from my days in the oil industry, say 10 years ago, if you wanted to add a new field onto one of the old-fashioned mobile devices, it was probably a change request to IT. It might take 3 months to do it, and it might cost $30,000. We can do changes within minutes on our device screens, and it can be done by a super user. So I think this whole idea of scalability, flexibility, agility is really important going forward with the modern mobile device. Okay. Yeah, and just to sort of highlight some of the devices. I mean, major manufacturers in this field. Zebra and Honeywell are still probably the two biggest and the market leaders. There's Cognex, who we work with quite closely, and you'll see, the ruggedized consumer devices. So we've, as I mentioned, we've got one client at the moment that's using an iPad on a forklift truck, which is the picture at the bottom. And there was all sorts of questions around, is it rugged enough to withstand, going outside in the sun, in the rain? But that's used on a forklift truck that loads vehicles out in the yard, and they've had this system working for the last 2 years. So it just really demonstrates the range of different options that are available to companies at the moment. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to spend about 5 or 10 minutes talking about a case study, because it brings together some of the things that we mentioned earlier. This is an oil and gas company. You'll see from the pictures on the right-hand side, it's kind of a typical oil and gas warehouse. So it's storing spare parts, which will be used to maintain assets, whether it be oil platforms in the Gulf of Mexico, it could be downstream operations like refineries, and really quite a big range of different material types. So from very small nuts and bolts all the way through to drilling equipment. So if you see the bottom right-hand picture, that's drill pipe, and on the left-hand side you can see some chemicals in drums, and then kind of right at the front, that's a piece of subsea equipment which is going to sit on the seabed, 10,000 feet down in the Gulf of Mexico. So you've got a huge range of different types of materials that are stored. The issue with the client here was that there was a disconnect between physical processes and systems transactions. So one of the things we mentioned earlier, that they had and they didn't have any mobile device before we went into this operation. So they were doing everything very much paper-based, and all the transactions were done in the office. So a big time lag between physical and systems transactions. The impact was on productivity, and it's interesting going around the warehouse for the first time. You sort of see a lot of people sat behind terminals, it's not actually doing physical work, but just actually posting the transactions into the system. There's huge amounts of paper, and oil and gas on the goods receipt side not only has bill of lading and delivery notes, but you'll get all sorts of certificates coming in with the materials, conformance certificates, heat certificates, depending on what the material is, and just trying to keep control of all that paper is very complex. Preservation of material is also very important in oil and gas. By preservation, we mean some of these spare parts may be sitting in the warehouse for several years, and you need to carry out preservation activities to maintain the quality and make sure they're fit for use. And that was all manual process when we went in there, and really lack of visibility of the end-to-end material flow. So we'll come on the next slide, we'll see how some of those issues were addressed. So the customer selected the RM inventory solution, mobile solution, and the idea here was they were using SAP as their ERP system, so we had to link directly into their back-end SAP system. We typically start the project by mapping out all the existing processes, and we're really looking to see where mobile can add value. And we get into a lot of detail, so we're actually designing all of the screens. We sit with the users, and it's very much around keeping things as simple as possible, minimizing the number of clicks, making the process as efficient and as fast as possible. In terms of the technical infrastructure, which we also help with, there's a lot of different elements that you need to get a mobile solution working. It's not just about the mobile device, you need all the infrastructure. So being able to set up the Wi-Fi network, linking in to the back-end solution, whether it be via cloud or on-premise, all that needs to be considered. And then there's all the security issues around that, because one of the big issues we find when we talk to companies is around security. If you're going to be using mobile, it obviously there's a potential that people can hack into the mobile solution. In the worst case, get into your SAP system. So the security is always a big issue. And then it's always about working in partnership as well. I think when you introduce a mobile solution, because your suppliers can affect the efficiency of your operation. If you're able to get suppliers to put barcodes on that your scanners can read, then that will have a big impact on the efficiency of your operation. Okay. Yeah, just final slide on the case study, just to look at some of the benefits, and we just kind of picked out 4 areas here. Firstly, on the goods receipt side, which is quite inefficient generally in the oil and gas sector. There's a lot of paperwork coming in. There's a lot of inspection. So quite often it's not just inspected by the warehouse staff, but you need a technical expert to also look at the material coming in. So anything you can do to improve that goods receipt process can have big benefits. And this was quite a simple idea, but just to barcode the bill of lading or the purchase order coming in with the materials, it means that the guy in the warehouse then just scans the barcode and immediately he gets the purchase order and all the line items coming up on the device. So that speeds up the goods receipting process. Then over on the right hand side is picking, and particularly oil and gas warehouses, you'll have a certain percentage of the material stored outside in a yard area. So yard areas typically might be 7 or 8 times bigger than the actual warehouse itself. And in this operation, they were using paper to kind of tell the forklift truck driver what he needed to pick. So this is before we went in. It was very, very much literally handwritten paper notes, and then we moved that over to the device. So all the picking, all the line items were on the mobile. Then in terms of stock accuracy, we introduced cycle counting as part of the project, and there was cycle counting going on before we started the project, but it was all paper based. So the count sheet would be printed off the system. The warehouseman would then go round writing the information onto the count sheet. It would then go back into the office. Someone would have to try and read someone else's handwriting, which is sometimes difficult. Errors would come through. So once you get that all onto a mobile device, then the count information, what needs to be counted, comes up on the mobile device. They scan the material, count the number of cartons or materials, input the quantity. So it's a very fast process. It not only increases the stock accuracy, but it can be done very quickly compared to a paper-based solution. And then finally, the last area that we looked at was it's a particular process actually which is specific to oil and gas. So when you move from the onshore warehouse off to offshore to platforms or drilling rigs, then a lot of companies are losing visibility. So they do the goods issue at the warehouse. It then sort of goes into the ether and then turns up hopefully on the platform sort of 5 days later through the shipping process. We introduced this remote logistics module of SAP, and we put that all onto a mobile. So that involved actually capturing what materials get packed into individual containers, scanning that, and then making sure we knew which containers went into which shipment, onto which vessel. So that gave visibility of the whole end-to-end supply chain from leaving the onshore warehouse to goods receipt on the platform. So that was a big improvement in the supply chain. Okay. Yeah, that's the end of the formal presentation. I was going to hand over to Sri now just to give us a short demo of the M-Infantry solution. And just a reminder, if you do have any questions, you can type them into the message box on the right-hand side, and we'll hopefully be able to get time to answer those later. Thanks. Over to you, Sri.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks for those insights. We'll kind of walk you briefly into the solution. We'll focus on the user experience side of things, the ease of barcode scanning and the tight integration with the backend system here in this brief demo. So I'll touch upon on the user experience side. One of the things that Richard mentioned was the alignment with the modern consumer operating system. So here you'll see a sample of, ability to find purchase orders and do goods or services confirmation, and you'll see the screen flow here. It's search. There's, fuzzy searching or barcode scanning integrated into each one of the screens. So, even if I type in a few characters, it identifies the right item on my list. So this combined with the power of the ability to scan barcodes accelerates some of the data entry. Once you click on items, it's pulling in data directly from the backend system. So this is where the configurability of the screen comes in, where customized by their super users at each warehouse to make sure the align with what they're looking to do in terms of data entry. Here, for example, I can key in numbers or quantity in the right field that gets entered, and then it gives me a workflow that's right on top, which walks the user through different steps of the process. So the first step was to find the order. The second one was to enter services. The third one is to enter or attach media. So when I hit next, it goes into item number 3. So here I can now take a photo or choose a picture that's already saved. So if I want to take a picture of, let's say, a packing slip and attach that to my my document that I'm confirmed, I can do that on there. We can also integrate options like signature capture. So here, because it's a touch screen, so if you want to use the solution as a proof of delivery solution or proof of service confirmation, that can be used. So I have the signature capture capability, and then finally the integration to SAP. All the transaction processing, in terms of when this is connected to a network, happens in real time. So here you'll see the real time posting into SAP with the document number retrieved in real time, and also the collaboration capability, right? Whether you want to notify your vendor contact or somebody in purchasing of the receipt of these parts, you'll see the capability to calls or voice to text or messaging or emails, with that into collaborative tools that modern consumer grade devices that run on iOS and Android bring to the right. We'll walk in through a few other processes here as well, in addition to what you saw now on a typical service receiving, but I'll switch back into a typical goods receiving process, and highlight the use of the barcoding feature. So I can tap on, let's say, goods receiving, and then I can scan in my vendor document. So here I scanned, let's say, a packing slip that was a barcode that was on a packing slip. One scan brought me to my document identified. So here you'll see, all the specific line items that need to be kind of confirmed on the specific purchase order. You'll see the level of integration with respect to the kind of material, right? So if it's a serialized material that you're looking to receive, you'll see automatically there's a serial number that's on the line item, or next item which does not have a serial number requirement, will dynamically change. So that's all based on back-end logic that we've incorporated in the application. And from an ease of use point of view, you have the key fields that are available to the end user, and as and when they want to or confirm, let's say in this case, a goods receipt in right quantity, and then if they want to attach a picture, in this case, let's say they want to take a picture of the parts or the items, or even to drive through paperless flow. I want to take a picture of the packing slip and attach it to my my goods receipt document. I can do that as well. So I have my picture there. Everything looks good, and then now comes the time to actually confirm the goods receipt. So this, again, tight integration with SAP means all of your transaction processing is happening in real time. And if there are any errors that triggers from the backend system, those are retrieved, again, in real time. From here, integrate barcode scanning. So if you have label printers, or if you have slips that need to be printed after the fact, after a certain transaction, that can be triggered in real time. So whether you're connected to either Bluetooth printers or wireless printers, that's based on a network. You can document and print directly from the device. Here you'll see I have a sample goods receipt slip that was spit out by my backend system, and then I can just select print. I can tap print to print into my wireless printer in this case. Next, we'll walk into kind of a typical goods issue process. So here, I want to scan, let's say, a work order in this case. I find the work order number. I scan my work order. Shows me the parts that are assigned on that work order. I can select. So here, if you're using this in a parts warehouse or a storeroom scenario, and as you're issuing out goods, if you want to capture the signature as proof of delivery, you can do that right here. Or you can also use this from a customer proof of delivery scenario. If you're distributing parts or you're delivering parts to your customers, based on your delivery documents and your goods issue documents, you could gather customer signature as well, right? So now, the posting of the goods issue, so this integrates, the posting capability. Now here you'll see the real-time integration to SAP. It tracks the error messages. So here, one of the key fields is the storage location field. That is a mandatory field that has been set through my configuration. So it looks for all those messages, tracks those error messages in real time, give the user, make sure that the accuracy of data is always maintained, right? So this posts the document. I have the material document from SAP, all the processing happening in real time effectively. Last thing I'll focus on is cycle counting, just to kind of give you a feel of how the screens layout and how the setup of the screen work. Again, to focus on the user experience angle, right? So here, I have a list of inventory documents, which shows me, the status of the count, as well as if I need to do adjustment. So here, you'll see all my, count documents are marked as green, so which means the count has been done. So I can navigate between different physical inventory documents in this case, and perform my follow-up action. In this case, if I want to, perform an adjustment, I tap on the adjustment. It tracks, the different reason codes. So if I want to enter a count difference, I can put that in. Or if I want to enter the physical count or do a recount, I can do all of those. So in essence, most of the transactions relate back to SAP in real time. Out of the box, there's close to about 60 different standard SAP transactions that integrate back to either the SAP IM, the inventory management module, or the SAP warehouse management module, WM, or even extended warehouse management module and remote logistics management, which is kind of more tailored and focused on kind of the oil and gas use case, the oil and gas end customers, right? So this, I hope the demo gave you, a good overview on what to expect, from a modern mobile, operating system and an application that's actually running on iOS in this case, but the user experience on Android kind of is the same. So when you train users, they don't typically see a big difference across different platforms or operating systems, right? So with that, I just want to summarize on what we saw based on Richard's insights as well as in the demo, right? Which aligns with the theme of the webinar, right? What are some of the key considerations, right, for finding two things? One is the right mobile device as well as the right operating system, and make sure the application that you select kind of meets some of these requirements that you're looking for, right? First thing is obviously, in a typical warehouse scenario, you're looking for the ruggedness of the device, right? So there's a lot of options in the market, but you could look for the right device that meets your drop requirements, extreme temperatures, dust or dirt. You're looking at the scanning capability, right? Whether your users are going to scan a few barcodes a day, or if they have more rapid scanning capability requirements, or if they have the need to scan at far off distances, which is long range scanning. And then also check if you need signature capture, or if you need credit card payment capabilities, there is the right device that supports some of these requirements. The ease of use is a very critical factor, right? As you align this to your end user population, the operating system familiarity and the ergonomics, where the buttons are placed, the size of the buttons, that's going to increase your user adoption, and that's going to eliminate workarounds, right? So typically when we talk about workarounds, it's going back to paper-based processes, and that's what you want to avoid, and you want to build in maximum end user adoption, right? Security, Richard kind of spoke about this, right? You want to be able to stop sophisticated mobile attacks. So that means integrating with mobile device management or a mobile application management solution. That's part of the operating system to be able to support that. Battery life, key concern is on the newer generation devices is the battery life, right? For example, one of the devices that is pretty popular that we see a lot of adoption is a Cognex device that runs iOS as well as Android devices. It has 3 backup batteries. In addition to the device battery, there's 2 other batteries on the device itself, which kind of extends the battery life on a single charge to about 24 hours. So even whether you're doing 2 or 3 shifts, you can accommodate. So that the power management is key. So both when you're selecting a solution as well as the device, that's one critical factor. The other thing is support costs, right? Because now, as and when, you have to keep in mind device failures and what that means to your business. So you want to invest, the right support structure for the application in order to be able to manage upgrades on the application as well as on the operating system, right? And then connectivity, right? It's important to make sure that the application that you're looking at also matches up with the device connectivity capabilities, whether it's cellular data, LTE, or Wi-Fi only, or the ability to operate in a disconnected state, right? The integration between the hardware and the software to be able to kind of address all those connectivity criteria is important. And finally, cost, right? The good thing about the iOS and Android operating systems is it covers a wide range of from a cost point of view. So it could start with a few $100s to all the way to a few thousand, depending on the requirements of the device, right? And then on the operating system itself, it's important to make sure that the device and the OS kind of mash together to give cohesive user experience to your end user. So you'll see some of the points repeated, but the key ones that I'll focus on instead of repeating myself is procurement and distribution of the application, right? How does your vendor of choice support updates on the operating system? One of the things that's more common on the iOS and Android platforms is the frequent updates, right? So it's important to identify your solution of choice to be able to support these upgrade cycles. Licensing fees, right? Traditionally, Microsoft, their software needed per seat licensing fees for many of its products. So if you're looking at a solution, you want to cut down on some of those external licensing fees that might come into play, right? Customizable, right? Richard spoke about this, right? On user adoption, as you scale the solution to multiple warehouses, multiple locations, is going to be driven by how customizable it is to meet specific requirements of that warehouse or location, right? So, in terms of when you're looking for a solution, key things are how easy it is to, let's say, add fields, or custom tailor workflows to meet, the specific business process there. How easy it is to add, barcode scanning capability, and how can the barcode scan logic be configured to meet, different barcode types and methodology of the barcodes, right? And finally, choice of devices, right? How do you, does the application that you're looking at and the use case have the ability to support multiple devices? If you want a VMT, that's a tablet form factor that's mounted on a forklift, right? Or you want a lightweight handheld devices, a handheld device at your receiving dock, right? So it's important to understand that, today in the market, the applications can support, multiple device types, device form factors, as well as device operating systems. So, tailoring the device to the user role is going to, again, increase adoption, right? So these are some of, key factors there, when it comes to summarizing what Richard spoke about in terms of the industry trends, both on the technology as well as the business side, as well as finding the right hardware and the right operating system for your inventory and warehouse application. Right. With that, we'll spend a few minutes on Q&A, so I'll turn this over to MJ to pick out a few questions, and either Richard or myself will take it from there.
Thank you, guys. We do have a few questions that have come through, and let me begin with, I believe it was, can the mobile screens be customized, and if yes, how?
Yep, that's a great question. We spoke about briefly of our technology called RACE, short for Rapid App Configurator Engine, right? So one of the key things of delivering a commercial off-the-shelf application for us is to ensure that the screens can be tailored to either a specific warehouse or a specific user group. So we offer a tool that provides a low code to a zero code configuration paradigm. So when it comes to either adding fields to the application or configuring business flows or changing the field types, the data capture type, keying in validation rules, all that can be incorporated into the solution through configuration, right? And that, in essence, translates into providing a tailored workflow or the tailored screen on the device itself, be able to customize to specific end users or business.
And it flows into that question, but Anand had a question of, do you want to show any customization capabilities?
Sure. In the interest of time, that's something that we can definitely follow up as an after item. What we can do is attach a few videos to the mailer that goes out after the webinar, which will point you to specific links where you can go in and customization capabilities on.
Okay. And does your solution support wireless printing?
Yes. So the key, to printing is now, most of the newer generation devices, or the hardware integration, or even the printers, they support Bluetooth or wireless printing. So the solution that we deliver kind of picks some of the most rugged and most popular devices in the printers in the market, and we offer out-of-the-box printing capabilities, either directly from the handheld or through an interface through the back-end system. So both options are available to our users.
How easy are the devices for warehouse folks to use based on the experience? They are one-fingered computer folks. Thanks, Tish, for that question. That's a good question.
I'll throw this back to Richard, right? So Richard comes from a deep warehouse background. So Richard, can you comment on the ease of use of the device? Because I know you've been involved with a lot of our end users. So I'll let you comment on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you compare the modern handheld device to the older devices, then the user adoption is a lot faster. If you compare it with training somebody on SAP, then there's a huge gap. You know, if you've got to train somebody to do a transactions into SAP, then even just for a warehouse type transactions, that would probably be 2 weeks training. So we're looking typically as part of one of our projects would be around about, for warehouse staff, around about 2 hours training, and then they're up and running. You know, frankly, if it takes any longer than that, you know, it means things are too complicated, and particularly we find in a lot of our warehouse environments, there can be quite a high turnover of staff. So it needs to be very, very simple to use, minimizing the number of clicks, keeping the screens as simple, taking out any information that the user doesn't need to see, and role-based as well. So the person would only get access to the transactions that they were authorized to through their role in SAP. So yeah, it's all about simplification, and that speeds up the training process. But for us now, it's not a constraint on implementation. It's done very quickly.
Thank you so much, Richard. We have time for one more question. It's from Ashley. Do you think that the asset life of newer devices will be lower than the previous generation?
That's a good question. So I can, you know, talk about our experience in this area, right? So because in terms of version upgrades, one of the things that, you know, we commit to our customers is to be able to support future upgrades, both forward-looking as well as, you know, the legacy versions as well. So what we do is, you know, we, in essence, are part of every single beta upgrade program that are rolled out by either the device or the operating system provider. And we don't have, you know, an upper cap on, you know, how many versions or how many years the support will extend through, right? So with that, you know, because the newness of the technology is about, you know, right now it's about 3 years old, at least on the Android side, and similarly on the iOS. I believe, you know, that's a very important factor to consider. And, you know, depending on which vendor, they might have their own on policies on that. But the way we see things is to be able to support, you know, not only the device, the operating system, into kind of the foreseeable future, because, you know, the typical lives on these devices are anywhere between, you know, 5 to 10 years, right? You want to make sure that the device lasts so that way there's a significant payback on your investment on those devices.
Thank you, Shri. Thank you, Richard, for your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions not answered during the Q&A session, we will send an answer along with the recording of this webinar. Thank you guys for attending. It was, if you're interested in learning more on this topic, you can visit Innovapptive website or contact us directly via email or Twitter. You can also subscribe to the Innovapptive blog for latest insight and news on our digital strategy, or from our digital strategy experts. And with that, today's webinar is coming to an end. Again, thank you guys very much, and look forward to working with you.